Too many records. Did you ever think you'd hear those words from a member of the vinyl community? Well, having received my second vaccination, and incidentally no side effects, just a sore arm for a couple of days, and things loosening up in general, it was time to make my first sallies out of town to go record shopping at my favorite spots in Berkeley and San Francisco. I had planned to save it for my birthday and make that my treat, but a few days earlier I happened to discover that it was the day that the store Grooves in San Francisco had reopened after being closed during the pandemic, so I had to make a special trip out there, and this is what I picked up. Jules and Brian by Julie Driscoll and Brian Auger. Not actually a collaboration album, though they did make collaboration albums. This one is really alternating tracks by Brian Auger and the Trinity and Julie Driscoll. There are two songs on which Julie Driscoll is backed up by a band of the members of the Blossom Toes plus Brian Auger on piano. Otherwise, it's separate. Great stuff, some wonderful orchestrated ballads from Julie Driscoll, some nice funky jazzy organ playing from Brian Auger on his tracks, and very comical closing with "Oh Baby Won't You Come Back Home to Croydon Where Everybody Beadle and Bows." A little tune about the various clubs in London. And this is on the Capitol label, and it's a promo of some sort, a sample copy that has the word "free" actually perforated into the cover. An American OG copy of Land of Grey and Pink by Caravan. Great Canterbury prog rock band. I'm try and go through these quickly because there are too many records. And I came home from shopping and said, did I buy that many records? It didn't seem like that many records. German spacey prog rock band Eloy. A promotional sticker this time on an otherwise stock copy. And this, being a promo, I guess has a note included on a kind of letterhead note paper from Janus and Chess Records saying, "Janet, a friend of Eloy is a friend indeed. See ya shortly, the Santa Monica Phantom." So evidently this copy used to belong to the Santa Monica Phantom. This is on Janus Records, 1974 release, and apparently the Phantom worked for that label. Flash, second album by this spin-off of the original Yes band, featuring the cover that, can I line that up somehow? This is music from the film adaptation of Charles Dickens's Nicholas Nickleby. Actually, it's just good guitar-led prog rock with Peter Banks leading the way. Definitely in the same wheelhouse as the parent band, Yes. Steve Hillage, Rainbow Dome Music. This is not his more prog rocky stuff. This is ambient, electronic, minimalist material. A little more Tangerine Dreamy than Gong-like. Very nice stuff. And a Canterbury-influenced American band, The Muffins, Mana Mirage, on the amazing Random Radar Records label. It's from 1978 and includes the kind of whimsical titles that a Canterbury-influenced band is going to present. Monkey with the Golden Eyes, Hobart Got Burned, Amelia Earhart, and the sidelong The Adventures of Captain Boomerang. Ceremony by Spooky Tooth with electronic effects by Pierre Henry, the great French electronic pioneer. And this is a rock interpretation of the Mass. Have Mercy, which is the Kyrie eleison, Jubilation, Confession, Prayer, Offering, Hosanna. But they're all just the parts of the traditional Mass done up in this blues rock style with bizarre electronic things happening. It's a really interesting and unlikely collaboration. And I remember back in the day seeing this record cover in the racks, and it would always freak me out. The second album by Steeleye Span from 1971, Pleased to See the King. This was their first album with Peter Knight on fiddle and Martin Carthy on vocals and guitar. Ashley Hutchings still in the band on bass and still no drummer. All material adapted from the British folk tradition. And this is a US copy on the less often seen Big Tree label, not the later reissue on Chrysalis. Duke Ellington, Ellington Indigos, classic stuff, not a great condition copy, but it was in the $2 bin, as was that Flash album with the thrashed cover. And finally on Turnabout, Electronic Music 3, and the one that sells this to me is Thema Omaggio a Joyce, Omaggio a Joyce by Luciano Berio, featuring the voice of Kathy Berberian and words taken from James Joyce's Ulysses, which is my favorite novel in the world. It's duly transcribed there. Avant-garde electronics. So that's it for the San Francisco trip on to Berkeley. And I didn't even make it to the big shops in Berkeley. Rasputin was not open, and Amoeba I just would have to save for another day. But I definitely did well enough without making it to those shops. Debut album by Cream, Fresh Cream. Always liked this American cover design rather than sort of more psychedelic logo on the British. And this is a really nice condition copy, OG, with the purple and gold Atco label. They actually had two copies, and it was a coin flip because there was this one and there was the other copy that was on the yellow Atco label. Now this is an original, but the yellow was the one that I used to have back in the day, so I had to make the choice between authenticity and nostalgia, and I plumped for the OG. And not much needs to be said. Great stuff by Cream. Bob Dylan, New Morning. Beautiful OG, again, copy from 1970. And funny thing about this album is it features the song Day of the Locusts. This was the first record from my haul that I actually played. And that evening hearing the song Day of the Locusts, which is Dylan's song about receiving his honorary degree from Princeton. He talks about what's going on in the background. The locusts sang. I thought, the singing locusts, I wonder if he's actually talking about cicadas. Because, cicadas have been in the news so much with the current brood being out there. The very next morning, I got my daily email from the New Yorker, and there was a link to an article called When Dylan Heard the Cicadas. And it was about that song. Lo and behold, it was about the very song I was idly wondering about, and yes, it was saying this happened in 1970, 51 years ago, when it was 3 cycles previous of the 17-year brood of cicadas, and that's what was going on when Dylan was receiving his degree. There were cicadas making noise out there. So that was your entomological digression with regard to a Bob Dylan album, as one typically does. You know. Happy the Man, Like the Muffins, another great, much overlooked U.S. prog band from 1977, so almost the same time. Beautiful cover, always loved this cover. Again, the wacky titles. The highlights are Stumpy Meets the Firecracker in Stencil Forest, you know. And my favorite, Knee-Bitten Nymphs in Limbo. One of many, many songs one hears about knee-bitten nymphs in limbo. Robin Williamson, post-Incredible String Band. This is his band that he formed after moving out to California, the Merry Band, and A Glint at the Kindling. Wonderful stuff. He really goes back to his Celtic roots and works in a more traditional sound. All flutes and harp and mandolins. Great Scottish poetic folk rock from California. On ECM, Aftenland, duets for saxophone and pipe organ by Jan Garbarek and Kjell Jonsson. Very interesting stuff. Even a little, even by ECM standards, a little out there. Sonny Rollins, solo. Almost an hour of Sonny Rollins improvising on the saxophone unaccompanied. Amazing. The solo album does what it says on the label. A lot of humor here in the quotations. He keeps running through familiar tunes like Pop Goes the Weasel and Peter and the Wolf, No Place Like Home. Just whatever pops into his mind or pops into his weasel, there he goes. Another one from ECM. Tom Vandergeld and Children at Play. The album is titled Patience. Tom Vandergeld on vibraharp and percussion, Roger Janata on saxophones, flutes, oboe, and bass clarinet, Kent Carter on bass, and Bill Elgart on drums. Very spacey and spacious, soft, weird, and interesting. Very cool. And from an artist who was associated with ECM, or would be later, Miroslav Vitous. I believe this is his first solo album. It was originally released on the Embryo label, produced by Herbie Mann, under the title Infinite Search. This is a remixed version with an added track released on Atlantic in the early 70s. Amazing lineup. He's got John McLaughlin on guitar, Joe Henderson on saxophone, Herbie Hancock doing some amazing piano work, Jack DeJohnette on drums for most of it. A couple tracks have Joe Chambers on drums replacing him. Those are from a slightly later session. And this one is a trip. Includes an 11-minute interpretation of Eddie Harris's Freedom Jazz Dance. Otherwise, it's originals by Vitous. 2 albums from Colosseum, a great jazz-influenced prog band. I showed the solo album by Dick Hextall Smith in my previous video. This is their first album, Those Who Are About to Die Salute You. This is the US version, which is almost a completely different album from the original UK. As was also the case with their second album. They're just hugely different, have some tracks swapped, and either way you can't go wrong, because it's a great album. And that was their first album. This was their last of their original run. Colosseum Live, double LP. In this incarnation of the band, they had added Chris Farlow as lead singer. And the double LP contains only 6 tracks, so as you can imagine, there's a lot of lengthy jamming going on. Another double LP, Incredible String Band U. That's the letter U, not the pronoun. This is often not as well thought of as the earlier Incredible String Band material. I think people look down on it a bit because they're aware of the heavy influence of Scientology on the band's work by this time. I think if you didn't know that from outside sources, you wouldn't realize it from the lyrics. So I think that's a bit prejudicial. Because it's not like you hear this album and come away with the impression that you've got to join the Scientologists. But there definitely was that influence on the band at this time. It was how they were living their lives. But this is music from a theatrical presentation that they did called You, in collaboration with the Stone Monkey Dance Troupe, who can be seen in various jocular poses there. This copy came as it should with the lyric insert. Now, I think it's a very good album. Some people, I think, also can't hang with the Bad Sadie Lee track, which really sticks out because it's a country western pastiche that's done in a really exaggerated style. And I think that grates on a lot of listeners. I like it. I think it's fun. Second collaboration by Andy Summers and Robert Fripp, Bewitched, on A&M. This was done in 1984, around the time that the 80s incarnation of King Crimson was ending. On into more jazzy realms, Gene Ammons' Angel Eyes. Love that cover. The material is 2 sessions from the early 60s. The album itself was released in 1965. This is a late 60s, early 70s pressing on the Purple Prestige label. George Duke and Feel. This is from 1970-something. 1974. I should have gone with my first instinct. Yes, 1974. Includes performances on guitar on 2 tracks by Abdul X. And behind that obvious pseudonym lurks the mustachioed form of Frank Zappa, who plays the guitar solos on Love and, is it Old Slipper? Yes, Old Slipper. I showed the back. I have now. I've been looking for this one to bring back to my collection. Charlie Haden, Closeness, an album of 4 duets, each with a different great partner. Ornette Coleman, Alice Coltrane, Keith Jarrett, and Paul Motian. And this is on the Horizon label in one of those annoying unipacks that opens from the inside. I think that contributes to the album being in excellent condition because it discourages the user from actually removing it from the sleeve. This copy I cleaned up as best I could. I tried to get rid of the rings where somebody had left a coffee mug on it, but there's still some traces of that. And coincidentally, I found at a different store the second album of duets, also on Horizon, also in one of those unipack sleeves with the center opening. This time, Ornette Coleman is again one of the partners. The others are Don Cherry, Hampton Hawes, and Archie Shepp. I'd never owned this one before, so I thought it was very cool that I was able to get both of those sort of partner sister albums. Promo copy of this album, Steve Kuhn and Sheila Jordan Band, Playground. with Harvey Swartz on bass and Bob Moses on drums. ECM sound, I have not listened to this one yet. These are all these ones now are the ones that I haven't gotten around to listening to yet. Michael Mantler, No Answer, with Jack Bruce on vocals and bass, Carla Bley on keyboards, and Don Cherry on trumpet. Gatefold edition, nice laminated cover, and it's a German import. This one is a French import edition of Sound by Roscoe Mitchell. This one is more familiar with a different cover, the black and white cover on the Delmark label, Roscoe Mitchell's first solo album. And this one actually bills him as from the Art Ensemble of Chicago, as indeed. And this one I've not only not listened to, I've not even broken the shrink wrap, because it's a still sealed copy of Water Mystery by James Newton, 1986. I don't know the music, but the instrumentation looks promising. Harp, percussion, tuba, clarinet by John Carter, koto, oboe, bass, bassoon, English horn, and of course James Newton on flute. It's going to be a goodie. Classic album, found a nice copy for cheap. Return to Forever, Romantic Warrior. Their proggiest album, I think. This could almost be, you know, something like where if Emerson, Lake and Palmer had gone off from brain salad surgery and started doing jazz, they might have made this. Fantastic, turbulent live album from McCoy Tyner, Atlantis. Double LP, recorded 1974 in San Francisco. Azar Lawrence on saxophone, Junie Booth on bass, Wilby Fletcher drums, and Guillermo Franco on percussion. Finally, double LP, Roger Reynolds Voice Space. This is modern compositions for vocals. Roger Reynolds is associated with my own alma mater of UC San Diego. And this is an album I've had bad luck with in the past, because I'd actually purchased a copy of this last year on eBay, and when it arrived, the post office had abused it, and both discs were shattered. So this copy, it has a weird inclusion in the vinyl. I haven't played the whole record, but I did play through the part where this horrible thing that you can actually feel is pressed right into the plastic, and it does play through. I'm not sure how many playings it will take, but it works for now. So that was my birthday expedition. Thank you very much for watching. Be well, and I'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.